There is a tiny insect called Laca. They look pretty ordinary, but there's something special, and this is relevant to the story, I promise. You'll find these insects on tiny sticks. A farmer will tie this stick to the branches of a host tree. The insects will colonize that tree, and soon thousands of tiny lac bugs will take over. They set up shop, munch on the tree, and start secreting this sticky, glistening red or orange colored nodule that coats the branches in a glossy layer. Once the tree branches are covered, the farmer will chop them off, collect, and then it can be processed into stick lac, which is then further processed into a resin called lac. Lac resin is prized for its versatility. It's used in art, decoration, jewelry. So it gives you this beautiful, lustrous finish. But this resin has one dangerous property. It's highly flammable. A fact that would play a central role in a sinister plot against the Pandavas. How? The Pandavas lived in a house made of this dangerous resin. Why? Because their cousin and rival Duryodhana built a house made of lac for the Pandavas. It was a beautiful house with rich shimmering walls, but it was designed to be their prison and tomb, set to burn at the slightest spark. As planned, the house caught fire, but the clever Pandavas outwitted their enemies and escaped. Namaste everyone, this is Stories of India Retold, where you will find well-researched stories from the critical edition of the Mahabharata. And today's story is filled with suspense, treachery, and a daring escape by the heroes of the book, the Pandavas. This event is referred to as the Jackal Daha, or burning of the lac house, and it is an important event in the story of the Mahabharata. Why? Because this was when the Pandavas got clarity about their precarious position in the royal family, and this is when they realized the length Duryodhana and his allies would go to get what they wanted: the throne of Hastinapura and elimination of the Pandavas. The Jackal Daha event takes place sometime after the Pandava brothers come to Hastinapura after their father Pandu's death. It was their first time coming to Hastinapura, and everyone from members of the family, the court, and the common people admired the strong, talented, and well-behaved brothers. Although not everyone in Hastinapura was thrilled by the Pandavas' arrival. Their cousin Duryodhana hated them and wanted them gone. He hated the super strong Bhima most of all. He made numerous attempts on Bhima's life. Despite his efforts, whether by poison, drowning, or snake bites, each scheme failed, and Bhima remained unharmed, seemingly invulnerable to death. This proved to be a significant source of frustration for Duryodhana. Adding to Duryodhana's frustrations, public opinion increasingly favored Yudhishthira. The citizens of Hastinapura believed that as the sons of their beloved King Pandu, the Pandavas were deserving heirs. Yudhishthira in particular was admired for his wisdom and honesty. When Duryodhana became aware of the growing support for the Pandavas, he recognized the urgency of taking action before the people's voices grew stronger, potentially leading to Yudhishthira being crowned as king. Duryodhana went to Dhritarashtra about this. He said, "Let's send the Pandavas away till I am made king." At first, Dhritarashtra was worried about possible pushback from the citizens and also other senior members of the court, especially Bhishma. But Duryodhana convinced him that they could control most people by giving them bribes, and Bhishma never interfered anyways, so it wouldn't be a problem. And so they sent the Pandavas away. Here's how they did it. The Kauravas gathered a host of advisors and ministers, showered them with riches and privileges. Next, he told them to extol the virtues of Shiva festival happening in the city of Varanavata. He patiently awaited the news of the festival to reach the Pandava brothers, who soon expressed their desire to attend the lavish event. When the moment was right, Duryodhana urged the brothers to participate in the festival. "You should all go," he proposed. The festival is magnificent and the city is stunning. Bring along a team of attendants and guards and enjoy yourselves, he said. Yudhishthira was a smart young man. He knew Duryodhana was not simply suggesting it. He wanted them to leave. Recognizing that they lacked resources and allies to support them, the Pandavas ultimately agreed to comply with Duryodhana's wishes. The Pandavas and Kunti got ready to leave. The people of Hastinapura were unhappy with the news. They suspected the Kauravas had something to do with this. They were upset that even Bhishma was not stopping the Kauravas from their schemes. Their uncle, the wise Vidura, also did not stop the Pandavas from leaving, but he asked to speak with Yudhishthira before they left. Vidura wanted to be sure no one else knew of what they were discussing, so he spoke to Yudhishthira in riddles. I'll share the entire riddle in the episode description if you are interested to look at it. It's quite long, and in the interest of keeping the story short, or as short as possible, I'll share part of the riddle here. In the first part of the riddle, Vidura tells Yudhishthira about what they should be looking out for, and in the second part of the riddle, he tells them how he thinks they should deal with this danger. This is the second part of the riddle, and Vidura says, "The man who takes a weapon not made of steel, given him by his foes, can escape from fire by making his abode like unto that of a jackal, which has many outlets. By wandering, a man may acquire the knowledge of ways, and by the stars he can ascertain the direction. And he that keeps his 5 senses under control can never be oppressed by his enemies." Yudhishthira nodded his head in understanding. Kunti asked him what Vidura told him. Yudhishthira revealed that Vidura told him the house assigned to them in Varanavata was built of inflammable materials. He said that the path of escape too will be known to me. With that, the Pandavas, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva, and their mother Kunti left for the city of Varanavata. When they arrived, they were welcomed with a lot of pomp. People milled around them to greet and meet them. They were assigned a guide to help them navigate the city. The guide's name was Purochana. Now, Purochana was Duryodhana's ally. Duryodhana sent Purochana to Varanavata to build a grand house for the Pandava. This house was to be strategically located near an armory and constructed using highly flammable materials like lac, hemp, plaster mixed with ghee and oils, and it was to be furnished with wood furnishings. Purochana's job was simple. Build the house, get the Pandavas comfortably settled in the house, set the house on fire with them in it. The flames would consume all the Pandavas and Kunti, and no one would suspect foul play. It would be a perfect tragedy. This was the plan. So, Purochana received the Pandavas in Varanavata. He accompanied them around the city and introduced them to new people. At first, he took them to a house where they lived comfortably for the first 10 nights, after which he took them to another house, which he claimed was better suited for them. Yudhishthira inspected the house. The walls, the roof, even the floors, everything reeked of danger. The entire house was built with highly inflammable materials. Yudhishthira's mind raced back to the warning Vidura had given him. This house was a trap. He quickly shared his discovery with his brothers. They needed to make some rather important decisions. They were surrounded by enemies with no allies to speak of, no fortune, no reinforcements to turn to. The Pandavas were left with only one weapon: their minds. They would outwit their foes, buying themselves time until they could formulate a proper plan. For now, they would stay in the Lac house and pretend that everything was fine. They would not give Purochana any reason to believe that they were onto him. Their wise uncle Vidura had anticipated the trouble the Pandavas would face. To aid them, he sent them a Khanaka, who is a man who was a miner or a digger by trade. The Khanaka was loyal to Vidura and the Pandavas, and with his help, the Pandavas set to work. They dug a deep tunnel with a narrow opening starting from the middle of the house, and the entrance to this opening was concealed with wooden planks. Each night, they slept in the hole in the tunnel. They were on guard all the time. But if you saw them, you would never know that these young boys were going through so much torment. They were always smiling, talking, pretending to live a normal life. In truth, they were immensely stressed, wondering when Purochana would strike and try to burn them all alive. They had no peace of mind and they were very unhappy. A whole year passed in this way. Purochana suspected nothing. He remained confident in his plans. But the Pandavas knew the truth. The house would burn. They had to escape before it did. Yudhishthira decided that they had waited long enough. It was time for them to stage their escape. The night the Pandavas chose for their escape was stormy, providing the perfect backdrop for their scheme. They needed a distraction, so they arranged for a feast. It was a grand feast where Kunti presented the Brahmins with alms. There was food, drink, music, and merriment. Once the brothers were done, they returned home. And when the night deepened, Bhimasena took a torch, made sure Purochana was still inside the house, and set the front door of the Lac house on fire. The flames leapt to life, spreading like a living thing, devouring everything in its path. As the flames raged and crackled, the Pandavas got out of there. They fled through the secret tunnel and ran into the forest. Their escape was swift. They couldn't linger. They didn't even stay back to see if Purochana was dead. They could not risk being seen. But after night of living on the edge, the brothers were tired. They were sluggish. Fortunately for them, they had Bhimasena. Bhima's strength and stamina was a thing of legend. He carried Kunti on his shoulder, the twins Nakula and Sahadeva on his hips, and Yudhishthira and Arjuna in his arms, and he raced through these trees and anything that came in their way. He moved like the wind. He was fast and he was strong. His every step shook the earth beneath them. Nothing could slow him down. His family was counting on him and he would not falter. Back in Varanavata, the house had burned to the ground. The heat was so intense that nothing remained but ash and ruin. The people found bodies which were all charred beyond recognition, but interestingly, they found 7 bodies in total. One of them, as we know, was Purochana. But who are the other 6 people? You see, earlier that night, before the brothers returned to the house from the feast, a family of hunters, a mother and her 5 sons, just like the Pandavas and their mother, were in the area, and they had attended the feast and had partaken in the revelry and drank far more than was wise. They were in a haze of drink, they were tired, and they wanted to rest for the night. Unbeknownst to the Pandavas, they chose to sleep in the Lac house. Tragically, this poor family was burnt in the terrible fire. Now, when the villagers saw the 6 charred bodies, they assumed that it was the 5 Pandava brothers and their mother, because they had no reason not to. The villagers mourned the tragic loss, and soon word reached the royal court. Dhritarashtra issued orders for proper funerals and rituals for his dead nephews and their mother. The world mourned and wept, unaware of the truth. The Pandavas had escaped, vanishing into the deep dark forest. They lived on, disguised and ever watchful, hiding their identities beneath the cover of the wilderness. The forest was now their home. They slept in the shadows while one of them was always on guard. As much as they could, they traveled in the night time using the stars to guide them. Every day was a battle, not only against the elements but also against the all encompassing fear that the Kauravas would find them. But the Pandavas were no ordinary people. They had grit, talent, and most importantly, they had each other. They would survive, and in time, they would make their enemies pay. Don't miss the stories where I tell you exactly how they do it all. I'll see you here soon. Thank you so much for joining me here at Stories of India Retold. Dhanyavada. Thank you.